Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to do an energy reading and a card reading for June. So I'm going to use a combination of cards, but also some of the things that I've been, I'm picking up and sensing for June. So if you haven't seen the card options in the group, we have, so this is card choice for card 1. Now, all the cards apply to, because they're all integrated and they're all intertwined, but there'll probably be a card, or in the middle, there's actually some for option 2, that it's 2 cards. But what I want you to obviously choose the card that you are most aligned with, or cards you're most aligned with, and then we'll interpret each card and how they integrate with each other, or they are interconnected. So we have card 1 and card 2 come out stuck. So we have, these are actually for card 2, right? And we have card 3, and this is for the energy reading of June 2023. So while I do this, I will be interweaving with some of the things that I believe is showing up and that you can feel and you can sense and even see that's going on. Okay, so the first card is card from the Akashic Realms messenger cards, right? And this card is very much, look here, it represents the masculine and feminine. And if you think about creation, right? If you think about God and how that connection we think about, for example, the connection with God, the connection with Earth, our planet, creation, and how the masculine and feminine is an important aspect of any creation in our life, right? In our life, our business, our relationships, there has to be the masculine, which represents often structure and certain taking action, right? It's a certain amount of sometimes discipline, but it's certain action taking. And the feminine, which is more about flow and creativity, synchronicity, right? Now, if you apply this to your purpose of your business, right? One of the challenges that many spiritual entrepreneurs have is they get caught up in very much the feminine aspect. Or if you came from a job or an occupation where you were very in your head, or you tend to be very in your head, you may be so into methods or strategy that you're in your head all the time. Now, there is some archetypes, for example, that you may be surprised that can spend a lot of time in their head instead of the heart or soul. And many, for example, people that get into spiritual work are alchemists, which are also sometimes known as the magician archetype. But if we look at the power of the alchemist, as they have the ability to see all sorts of possibilities and be able to help, obviously look at the light and the dark, but they can spend a lot of time in the mental mind. And a lot of alchemists go down, study, they're fascinated by the mind, and of course the mind plays a big part, but they can have an over-attachment to the mind, and the shadow element can come up where the like the sorcerer, where sometimes they are not always patient. They're not always, they like to see the magic, the miracles, the shiny objects, all things that look sparkly and like amazing and mystical, but they sometimes struggle with doing the deep work, or doing the practical work, or being realistic, right? And being practical. They prefer the mystical, and they sometimes can dip their toe too much in the dark, or they don't always have good discernment, right? Now, we all as archetypes have these elements playing out, right? And it's so important that we identify both where our masculine and feminine, are they in balance or are they pushing out? It's the light and the dark. What is going on, right? Now, when we are trying to create a business that's more spiritual, that's more soul aligned, it's so important to into the heart, right? To do it from the heart, and the soul, which takes a deeper element and a deeper connection, and we can create all sorts. This is a great card that has great power, and it represents how much we can co-create magic in the world. So the powerful aspect of the alchemist. And even if you think about the mother, the creator element, right? The nurturing element, the caring and support, which helps things grow, right? There can be great power, but there has to be often stability, structure, and discipline in some aspects within that foundation. And this is a card that helps remind us that, you have so many possibilities at the moment, but it's about and you can create so many things and be part of the creative solution, particularly for New Earth and for creating change in the world. That it's important to get the balance between the masculine and feminine. I'm going to give some examples of where, for example, the masculine and feminine can show up even in society, and it's shown up a lot. So the masculine can be the control, the power, the dominance, even trying to push your opinion constantly on other people. It can be being very obstinate about certain opinions, even when we are, say, for example, I'm trying to think how I could describe this. It's like, we're alienating, we're pointing the finger, and we're push all the time to certain things, right? And we're pushing agendas, our own agenda, or our own way of thinking, and we're so one way of doing things. It can be stubbornness, it can be that kind of aggression, right? It can go that way instead of being about stability and strength. If you think about, for example, spiritual discernment and spiritual wisdom, it comes from being in the center, where we maybe see certain things playing out and whatever, but there's a sense of balance and detachment, so that when we take action, we take wise action, discerning action. We take action that is going to be co-creative and powerful and positive. We're not spending all our energy in destruction and control and in dominance and just trying to pick faults and everything, right? What we're doing is trying to see if the balance helps. And the masculine and feminine, if you think about it from a different perspective, is that it can see where there is light and shadow, but it still has the ability to be in a state of flow and a state of being, and have the ability to create. When you're in a forceful or an aggression or in that perspective, you're coming constantly from fear and dominance, and only focusing always on the negative and the negative even in others. We struggle to get the compassion, the feminine, and the ability to see things and to be able to see possible solutions and to see things from a different and higher perspective, right? So in business, it's so important the same, that you're able to see you're not being too destructive about yourself, you're not too negative your business about things. You can take the higher line, be more get the balance and see things from a higher perspective, and bring that feminine creative flow. Now, if you find yourself in the opposite, where you are so into your spiritual connection or into flow, but you resist physical structure, resist things on the physical realm. So you may have challenges around receiving, you may have challenges about charging, you may have certain things. Now, a lot of that can come from also wounding to do with the masculine. It can also be masculine elements, but if you're too in the flow, and if you're being honest with yourself, you don't have a certain structure and you resist structures, and even if you resist strategies and methods. Like, for example, when we often learn tools and techniques in our vocation, there are certain things that make things easier and help us to understand things. And when we learn the tools and techniques a certain way at the beginning, we do it more effectively. And it's the same with a method and strategy. If you have certain strategies in your business, it can help save you time. It can help you get out in front. And if you really want to be, help a lot of people, but you don't want to be just doing it for the money and just charging astronomical amount of money. Often in a business, you have to be strategic, and it's about thinking smart. So that's where the masculine, and where a lot of spiritual, particularly female entrepreneurs, are so stuck in the feminine that they are not in the masculine. So this is a card that is represent how much it's important to keep that balance in business and life right now. We have to have the balance and recognize where are we in the ability to co-create with the masculine feminine, or are we taking more the control, the destruction, the pointing the finger, they're wrong, I'm right kind of thing, or they're bad, we're good, that kind of thing? Or are you mixing both and recognizing that also? So if you think about even polarity teaches us things. Polarity helps us all grow, because none of us, when we come on earth, we're all human. We all have different vulnerabilities, and a lot of things that show up in the world now are designed for us to see the shadow within ourselves. So, this is important, and it's the same in a business. When you grow in a business, it's so important to see the light, all the things that are amazing and wonderful, and the things that you can do and you can help. But if you don't face the dark, don't face the shadows, the things that you're not really good at, or the things that your clients may be finding difficult, you're not going to really be able to help them if you're hiding your head and you're not really being honest or seeing things from both the strategic and the masculine and the feminine, more intuitive and the flow, right? So it's time to bring your balance, your masculine and feminine energies. Without the masculine drive to action, right, the dreams of the feminine will not manifest. Without the feminine creativity and desire, the masculine wanders around doing projects that have no real purpose and take action that's going nowhere. So is your actions right now creating change, it's either nurturing for yourself, sometimes we take time obviously for stillness and being, and that nurtures ourself, it nurtures our soul? Or are we doing lots of things that are not really taking us to our purpose, not part of our mission? Are we wasting a lot of time? Are we just doing things for the ego? Right? Are we doing things for other reasons or for a fear? Right? Okay, so this is really, really important. So that's card 1. Okay. Now, card 2 was 2 cards. So these cards are from Rebecca Campbell's cards. Okay. Now, I'm not a big fan of going exactly. A lot of people who have oracle cards, they channel certain things, and I'm not always completely in alignment with everything that people channel. But cards can be a good way to get certain information across, especially when you use it with your own guidance and whatever. It's so important not just to get caught up with maybe even what the person interprets, but these cards are definitely, they're in line at the moment, but that's, I wanted to say that for lots of reasons, because sometimes there's some things that people use symbology and they bring things that are mythology or their interpretation through, and it's always important to remember that even when you're using cards, people's ideologies, you don't have to take on their ideologies, and that's so important. That's part of being spiritual discernment. So interesting, this card, if you got card 2, right, so it said it's 2 cards, there's actually polarity going on in the rest, so it's really interesting. The 3 card sets, there's polarity in some element going on here. So this card is talking about no, And it's talking about the importance if you're not fully, something doesn't feel completely aligned and you don't get that 100%, and that, you know, we often, there's things in life that where we get this download and this feeling and we know it's like a go and a yes, and you know that you've been spiritually connected and you've been spiritually guided, that this is a big yes. But this is saying there's a lot of people, and I know there's quite a few things that I'm changing at the moment. I'm stripping lots of things in my business away. I'm starting to going to be owning a lot. I know I'm going to be owning things that I've not really been, how could you say, fully told everybody about, because it's been something, a lot of things I've been studying for the last 10 years. And it, you know, it was very complex stuff that I felt that I wanted to go deeper before I started bringing it into my work. And how I do it is not 100% yes yet. So I'm not going to put something out. I wouldn't, you know, from integrity, till that's completely right. So it's saying, wait. So a lot of these will have this: wait, postpone, pause, say no. And this can be also, if we look at this, you know, the dark, it can be things even maybe someone's trying to coerce you into, or saying to you, come on, I think we should do this. It might not feel right. I've had lots of situations, for example, through the years, people asking me to partner up with them with maybe a business or something. And sometimes I kind of felt, oh, I felt as if it was kind of hijacked. And, you know, and sometimes we can look at things and people, how could you say, they can, opportunities can be served in a way that on the surface look good, but there's something intuitively, it's not, it's, you know, the hesitancy is not your own fear of the mind. There is something else that is kind of saying, maybe no, this is not exactly completely right for me right now. And that's okay to say no. So this is really important. And I think for a lot of people, this is a time, for lots of reasons, but it's not to run and jump and say yes when we don't know, because this is a time, I believe, for nurturing, a time for stillness, a time for a lot of people to let go of the old, right? Now, if you look at this, it's interesting because this is related to some other cards. It's, you know, so this is to do with storm, right? This card is all about, you know, where, so if you see there's lightning, right? There's lightning in front, right? And what does lightning do? Lightning tends to clear away things, right? And sometimes a storm can clear away the old, clear away things that we don't think, the things that we've been attached to, right? That we think that we need or that we should have, or a sense of entitlement, right? And a storm starts to sometimes in the storm, you can get confused, you can start focusing on things, or just so focused on the negative, right, that you are not sitting in presence. So this is about sitting in presence and following it. And it's a path. If you see the path, we're getting into a bit of a storm now, right? A bit of a change, a bit of a shift in reality, a shift in consciousness, a shift in how we do things, right? So it's telling me this is like kind of in a way, a kind of warning card, just to notice areas in your life where there's maybe not 100% yes, and there's might be a reason why you have to hold off on certain things, right? Now, if you think about your business, right, you know, often some people get stuck in the no all the time. They don't take any action. They use excuses. And there's some types of archetypes that are more likely to fall into that, and it's self-sabotage. And they're not always being honest with themselves. But there's times knowing when saying no doesn't mean always inaction. This is really important as well. It's about that as a time where you may not be productive in moving forward, but you can, it's like, there's times in the seasons where, like if you think about winter, right? So winter might be a time where it's time to cool in and whatever, but it also might be a time to get prepared for certain things, right? And we don't have to be doing other things, but there's other things you can start doing in the winter, right? And you can be resting, you can be recuperating, you can be, you know, or even if you think about autumn, getting ready for winter, right? It's telling in this card about actually that waiting is actually can be productive when the time for movement comes and you're ready. So this is a great time for getting more, into the soul, more deeper and a deeper spiritual connection. If you need any help in that area, I have some shorter stuff and some stuff in the free Light Workers library. But I have I have a phenomenal amount of content that you can access on a month, like for a monthly membership, on the Light Workers Toolkit, which I'm considering just calling it a Light Workers membership because that's what it is. Okay. But this is about tending to your garden, tending to your home, tending to your inner world, right? Tending to those things that you have not been paying full attention to. And also, I believe this is about attending to getting inwards when you had trying to distract yourself. Where in your life have you been constantly busy, constantly constantly distracting yourself with the external world and all the things that's going on without actually doing the inner work and preparing yourself, right? So this is really, really important. Take a moment from your busy life to clear the decks and prepare for the time in the future. For come spring, clarity will bloom, and you will have the reserves, the space and drive to say yes and act more quickly. If we don't take the downtime, we don't take the rest periods, and we don't have time to integrate change, we can't fully come in with a sense of strength and power. So we all have times in our lives that it's so important that we slow down and we pause and we say no. Because if we don't, we can't then, when it's like time for us to go, right, we're not quite ready. And it's almost like, I believe that this is a card that it's saying almost take the time, and I'll explain the card that comes with it, because something's coming quite soon, right? Now, so these two cards are offered to, and this one is about Akash, and it represents the Akashic records, but it's not really just about the Akashic records. In many ways, if you think about the Akashic records the Akashic records represent the energetic blueprint of our past, our ancestors' past, and if you believe in timelines and past lives and time future, all the things that kind of, if you think about it on an energetic level, and if you think about the soul and you think about even a human experience, a life experience, and all the little things that actually correlate and have a butterfly effect on a life, right? What we carry genetically, what we carry through ancestors, what we can carry through culture, society, whatever, right? The Akashic records is just, in some ways, the way that the human form, some people, or a spiritual form, will describe a way of accessing a certain amount of information. But it's just like a library of information. But if you look at your energetic blueprint, right, your energetic blueprint, like, so for example, when I'm working with clients, I often pick up certain things about people, the way they work, right, and what, it's just some information sometimes comes when I'm talking, which is quite interesting, how people are working on the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual in their life, in their business. Are they stuck in their head? Are they stuck in their throat? Are they stuck in the root, in the chakra? Or have they a really clear chakra? Or are they giving their power to things? And that can be to people. And that can also be to lower guides or lower touch or lower interferences, right? Now, if you think about the Akasha is about, in many ways, it's talking about guidance is divinely guided, right? Synchronicities, right? And if you think about how we all, when do the most powerful things happen in life, right? When often great change happens, and when we are guided, we can create so much confusion for ourselves when we if we don't listen to, so obviously, the last card was about saying no when you're not getting that 100%, you're not getting the drive and you don't feel. And the other one is the opposite, is about you knowing when you get the signs. Now, before I go into reading a wee bit about this card, I'll give you an example of something that might help you. I remember, so I used to work for a counselling organisation, and it was like a charity. And I remember at the time lots of things was going on in my life, and there was lots of things going on in the charity. And I would have to be honest, there was things going on in the charity that just felt so off. It wasn't the intention behind the charity, and the people behind the charity wanted, they had a good intention, but how they were going about it wasn't always from pure integrity, and just for lots of reasons. And it's, it was like almost this kind of dance with things, right? And in many ways, the cards that are talking at the moment are talking about a dance between the masculine, feminine, and the duality, and a dance between life, a dance between our light and shadow, a dance between looking always, spending more time outward than inwards, right? So it's all about a dance, really, this card, right? But I remember two of the women were they had a strong faith in certain things and guidance. And I remember I asked them something, and they said, well, and my father was very, very like this. My father, one of these people that would kind of ask for guidance. And I mean, I get it in another way. I do get it now. But I felt very lost at the time and felt as if I wasn't getting the guidance, but I was. I just wasn't wanting to see it. And I remember they said to me, well, what they would say is if they felt the signs they weren't getting were big enough, they asked for huge signs. Now, this organisation wanted me to stay with them because I had lots of different skills that they didn't have. They were older women, I had a lot of skill sets. And I was also, because of what the qualifications I had, I was a way for them to get other funding, just the way it was, right? So having me on board with them opened doors up because of just at the moment what the funding was at the flavour of the month. There was lots of reasons for it, right? And I was doing a lot of things I really shouldn't have been doing, not getting paid for it, and doing a lot of people's jobs, basically. And it was starting to wear on me. And I was in a conflict because I understood that this project had great potential, was a valuable asset that many people needed, but there was lots of things that was not aligned with my core values, my integrity, and was not right for me, right? And they said that they would ask for huge signs. Now, I just saw it as stress, but was interested in what started to happen. My car kept breaking down. Every time I went to go to the job, the most insane things happened. One day, it was just unbelievable how many things happened. I went out the house. My tyre, something happened to my tyre. I got my tyre sorted. Then I had some wrong with oil started leaking from my car. I can't remember, there was loads of other things. And by the time I got in, it was very late, and this started happening. And it took me a long time to listen to the signs because I felt I was too busy in my head thinking that I was going to let people down and let the clients, because there was nobody else that had the training and the things that I offered in there. I had a qualification that's was quite rare in Scotland, and what I was doing. And it was one of those things that I was so in my head, I was not listening to what was right for my physical body, was right for my soul. And I was, as an empath, I had got energetically embroiled in other people's stuff. But then what happened was really interesting, because lots of things happened which were quite dramatic, but it was like a chain of events that would change my life, a chain of events that were hard and tough, but actually cleared the deck for me. And then I started getting all these angelic signs, which were quite remarkable, of things in a dramatic situation that ended up taking me back down another path in a way. It was still a similar path, right? So, and so sometimes things come in ways that we don't want to see it. and it's our head or our physical attachment. There was a bit of financial security with this job that I had never got in my business because for lots of reasons. So I was hanging on to that financial security. I was hanging on to certain things. I wasn't trusting in the universe. I wasn't trusting in the signs. And I remember I said to one of the counsellors that I worked with, you know, she asked me a question. She said, "Eileen, your life always seems really hard. There's so many things happen." And I realised that I had most of my life thought I had to break through a wall or constantly break through certain challenges, right? That everyone was a challenge and I had to get through this challenge. And then she says, sometimes you just have not to go, you're not to, you know, go through that wall, or you've not to try, you have to go around another way. And I thought, oh God, Jesus God. And that was like a light bulb moment, right? There was me thinking that I had to, what I believed was a challenge was to be faced, and I had to deal with it and, you know, rise above it. When I realized that actually maybe I was just to take another road, right? So interesting. So when you look at the Akashic realms exist in the 5 dimension, now, this is important. So a lot of people get so focused on the 5th dimension. There's lots of dimensions above. And it's one of the reasons why I talk about as a healer. And some of the things that I've learned working with a lot of top spiritual teachers around the world who have been helping a lot of healers who have had all sorts of things happen to them and all sorts of things energetically and psychically going on. There's things way above the 5 dimensions, and people don't talk about this. There's lots of things can interfere in the 5th dimension and above, right? It's just so that you know this, because this is something that most basic energy modalities and healing modalities don't teach. And it's also why there's lots of things going on at the moment that are invading above the 5 dimension. Now, I've kind of got off point, but I just feel this is important because there's a lot of things. Say when you go into the healing world and the spiritual world and you start to learn, believe me, 30 years down, most of us are still only scratching the surface to a tiny, tiny amount of what we understand and what we know. Okay? Just so you know that. But if you think about everything is, you know, in this 5th dimension, right? But we have free will. But there's also, and I'm a great believer that there's certain things that is kind of, what's the word? It's in this predestined, you know, something there's predestined, there's things supposed to happen. So if we look at a life path, so I want you to think about your life path. Everybody's life path, certain things would have had to happen in your life for something to be part of your life path. Now, I can honestly say that lots of the weird and wonderful medical challenges that I had and the weirdest things in my even journey meeting, I mean, I spent most of, I'm not saying, but a large part of particularly my teenagers years and my early adulthood meeting all sorts of doctors, all sorts of healers, speaking to all sorts of holistic practitioners, top of their field because of the complexities that I had. And that was, in many ways, a very rich journey because it taught me and it helped me see things from such a wide perspective. Now, a lot of people say to me, but Eileen, you chose to look. A lot of people would have just not been as inquisitive or be proactive but at a soul level, I believe that there was a desire for me to become educated, to become empowered, but I think it was because it's part of my journey, right? I couldn't do what I do now, and I couldn't teach what I teach now and help be more objective, and that's the key, be more objective when I'm helping people in their business, in their holistic and spiritual business, and with their purpose. Because I'm not always I'm not about rubbing people's ego. I think that this is what we've caught with, you know, there's a lot of that in the spiritual churches. They're just about rubbing people's ego when spiritual truth is more important, but also for us to grow spiritually. And if I look at all these things that happened they were predestined to help me be able to help other people. If I hadn't these experiences and insight and understanding and be able to see things from a wider perspective and a more objective perspective, I would be coming into helping you with your purpose, with your spiritual development, whatever. I would be coming in with a very, very narrow view. Now, of course, I form certain beliefs, and that doesn't mean that all my beliefs are right. I'm not saying that, but I still can see things from a wide perspective and see why people see things differently, right? Now, I want you to think about your life. What in your business, what happened in your life, what was predestined, what happened in circumstance, I mean, I've got a few really interesting things that I always think, what part of, my life, and I was just sharing this with someone yesterday, she's in the group called, but anyway, I was just talking about how, so before, my father, when he was a child, was in a really bad accident, right? When he was a child and nearly lost his life. And the man that took him out the car when he was in the car accident thought my father wasn't going to survive. It was very traumatic for the man, a young boy. And I think my dad was only about 8. He might have been at the oldest 10. And he had really bad head injuries. And he was taken out the car, and he was in the car with his uncle. He was down kind of London or down south, kind of London way, in this accident, and he was in the car with his aunt and uncle. And unfortunately, his aunt ended up really, really, really badly disabled and badly ill. Now, I was named after her. And it's interesting what energetically my life ended up being, and lots of things that happened. So I think there's lots of things we don't understand. But when you understand that there's some things that are predestined to help you be more strong, to help you face more difficulties. If you think about, a lot of yous are starseeds, a lot of yous, people make clashes, earth angels. I know these can be very spiritual terms, and sometimes they can be ego work. But if you look at yourself as a light worker, as a healer, or a therapist, a coach, and some of yous are actual, you work with healing as in healing, and some of yous maybe use the word in a loose term. But your life and how you see the world shapes some of the things. But there'll be things within, really key major events in your life that would pivot you. If you look at most people who become doctors, and a lot of doctors, even though we can have certain views about, mainstream medicine, there's often pivotal things in their life that also make them become doctors, right? So, if you think about that, right? So there's free will, there's things, so there's times in a timeline. If you look at the pandemic, lots of people who are into manifestation, law attraction, were shocked when different things that happened in the pandemic, because they didn't, how could you say, predict it? They didn't manifest that. But, so there's something that's a collective thing, right? So there's soul contracts and there's agreements, right? And when your soul, I believe that when you actually give over your soul to the universe from a higher perspective, then things tend to flow easier. Now, that doesn't mean that you're not going to have challenges. Doesn't mean that there are going to be certain things happening in your path that you don't like, because that can be part of your contracts, and that can be part of like a ritual, or like, if you think about tribal things, and people have certain things that happen in their path to take them, initiations. So we all have different initiations, right? Now I'm doing one of Caroline Miz's courses, accreditation courses at the moment. And she's very into initiation, how things will have initiations. So these things drive us. Now, when you understand that you have a mission, you all do have a mission, and you can get more into your soul, you pick up the connection, you feel when things are really off. But you can only do that because sometimes we feel things are off, we think things are not right, and we can feel things in our nervous system or whatever. But it's spiritual discernment that helps us, more identify where it is. And it's, and when we're making discernment, it's more about us, it's easy just to use discernment just to point the finger everything else externally. But most things is about us first. It's starting to about us. What can we do in this section of what are we supposed to do? You know, it's about taking ownership, and it's about listening for what's right for us, and you know, and being guided. So this is really important. And this card is reminding you that. So those of you in 2 is, so you've got a combination going on. You've got learning to say no and pausing it at the moment where you feel it in areas in your life, in your business, your path, your spiritual journey, where you're not getting that go, that you know something may not be quite right or doesn't feel right now. It's about you looking for the signs and taking the time to go in deep, to connect with that spiritual aspect, to know that there's some things that are divinely timed, to know that the things in your life, that the biggest challenges are often things that were supposed to happen because they're part of that divine timing. But that it's about listening. It's you are divine, you are guided, and even when you don't get what you want, that doesn't mean that you're not being guided. Because sometimes when you don't hear something and you're not getting the go, it's because you've not to go at that point, right? You have to be more still, more connected, and you know, go inward, right? So this is really important. So the next card is the 3rd card. So that was this one. And this is from Senga, these cards, portal cards, and this is duality. So if you are number 3, this is more about, again, all these cards are about duality, but this is about, you know, so sometimes we think we have to hold all, do everything, have everything, be everything at the one time, right? Now, sometimes we do that by setting pressure, but often one of the things that I saw this for years when I'd done particular things like stress counselling with clients and in my stress management area, where people, when they were immersed in their ego and in their mind, they were setting goals that were ego-driven goals. They were not soul-aligned goals, right? And when you set ego goals and they don't align with the soul, what happens? You have a conflict because you think you can have it all, be it all from an ego perspective, right? You're coming actually, so when the ego is driven, it's also often driven from lack and fear, right? Now, we think as we grow that everything gets easier, right? That we should be in full flow all of the time. Often with growth comes more to hold. With light comes more dark. Our ability to have it all is very much dependent on what we can hold as we evolve. Challenges can derail us, or they can be seen as a season of growth. Navigating challenges compounds our ability to resolve, to resist, to reside. This is about acknowledging the areas you have mastered. Also recognizing pressure, difficulty, and darkness. It's also to see how you trust yourself and stretch your personal power, to know that you can hold whatever life brings going forward, that you can hold the dark and the light at the same time in this duality, living less in reactive power. And this is all about you being okay no matter what's going on round about and what's going on in your life. It's that middle point between duality, being able to see aspects of the dark and recognizing those aspects of the dark are within us as well, right? And being able to, no matter what, is navigating the current scenario, but it's also been able to, in that point, getting into a state of balance helps you bring in more light, right? And it helps you take action from the soul rather than ego, right? Because the ego thinks it wants all these things, and it wants all these things in life that actually when you get it, you don't really want. If you think about, lots of people set goals and they want the new house, the new car, the new thing for the house. They're so attached to physical items. And then guess what? They get it and they never look at that thing. It sits in their mantelpiece and it's in their cupboard. Or someone who loves that new bag, new shoes, but it sits in the cupboard, and guess what? Right. There's so many layers to this, right? but it's about, mostly I think at the moment, this is really prominent in not being reactive to everything, right? And we have to have, again, as I've talked about in this reading, spiritual discernment. So we can also look at things and we know certain things are not right. And of course, I do believe that in society, I've been shocked over the last few years. I have been absolutely gobsmacked, I have to be honest, how the lack of, like, people just sitting back. And I and I found that really, really, I just found it really mind-blowing. But I've recognized that a lot of people are in cognitive dissonance. They're not that connected, or they're so busy in aspects of life, or they're so disempowered, or they are so just reactive and just want to, focus so much always on that, are judging aspects to that what happens is they're stuck. They're not actually in a place of then creating solutions, right? And it's, if you think about the geniuses, the true genius, we've been obviously taught, and sometimes in society, there's people that created things, and it turns out that they're not really, right? But true spiritual genius often comes when people are in creative flow, in a state of being. And again, when I talked about the dance of duality, right? They are able to access the 0 point and be in the flow no matter what's going on in their life. If you think about the greatest artists and different people, when they go into that, they can do that, right? And we can easily get sucked into the light of dick. So it's like, even a lot of light workers, they just want to focus on the light. They just want to make the spiritual connection, but they don't want to bring it into their physical life, right? Or they don't want to take action, right? So it's remembering who you are internally as you navigate the journey, because our internal world is what keeps us strong. If you over-attach to the external world and external things, you can hold on. It's like you're controlling everything. You want to hold on to everything. You can lose everything, right? But if you make a connection with the internal world, that part of you that never changes, and that spiritual connection that always flows, that we can always have a channel for, well, you're fine. But when if you over-attach the external world, you are always going to be in a dance way with the light and the dark, but from the external world, and it's very chaotic, right? So it's about facing challenges and celebrating simultaneously to be in a state of balance. Knowing with strength that you can transform negative energy into a higher level of awareness, right? So every single one of you have that strength within you to be able to be that dance, right? And no matter what comes up or what is coming, because I do believe we're in a storm in society at the moment, and things have been revealed. And sometimes it's easy for as well, everyone's new. I see this culture at the moment now where it's all about pointing the finger, right? And we have to, step back from that. We have to step back. Of course, there is, to me, having discernment and wisdom about what actions we need to change and stop. But when we actually, get caught in the pointing finger of certain things, and we don't always know 100% fact, or so embroiled in that, we're getting embroiled in the polarity, right? We're getting pulled into this polarity, right? Where we can step back, you come from a place of wisdom and power, and you think, right, what can we do to create change in a powerful way, rather than to cause, rather to cause more division, more chaos, more like, so it's really important. So it's about learning to dance. These cards are all about learning to dance duality in a healthy, happy way, to be guided when, take the time, and know when it is time to move forward, and look for the signs, know when it's time to say no, know not to get pulled into other people's storms, and all this, aspect, which of some things is not productive, it's not, and be guided, because if we're so pulled into the polarity, we're so pulled into the storm, You can take little bits out and do certain things, but it still pulls you out of your channel. Your only job is to be in your channel and connect in your channel so that you can live every day with a life of purpose, flow, and create solutions. And back. So we're going back to the first card, masculine and the feminine, the importance of the feminine flow, the creativity, the importance of structure, of motivation, the taking action, and discipline, about, and even rules. Sometimes there's things that, for rules and ways of doing things, knowing to say, wait, postpone, say no, particularly when things have to be cleared away for us. Things sometimes we're on the right path and we have got a great idea or we've got another place to go, but it's just timing's wrong because something else needs to be aligned, or we need to get rid of something, right? We need to be able to let go of something or heal something. Recognizing that there is, there's lots of things within our paths, our patterns. It's always also, one of the things, because I work with archetypes are part of your history and past, yes, ancestral stuff and all that as well. Now, there can be lots of factors that need healed that, often we, in our work, we're healing ancestral paths with so many things, right? But there'll be so many things that can keep us stuck. But the more that we get into stillness and the more that we are in the flow, it's easier for us also to see what areas we may be blind about. But when we're in the state of flow, we're more likely to live truly our purpose and our mission, and not as caught up in things that are not important, right? And not to be also to recognize when there's something else or something energetically trying to interfere with our mission, because there's a lot of energetic interferences going on. That many healers can't shift because they're still working under the 5D, right? Now, the duality, the importance of, being in the middle point, right? To be that discernment, that objective, but to also recognize that we can get through no matter what. We're human as well, the aspect human, but not get dragged into the drama of the physical world, and recognize that we all have aspects of that darken, and we start pointing the finger and judge that there's elements within us. So it's important. So I hope that helps. And just to let you know that, again, just so if you don't know what this is, the Light Workers Toolkit is a monthly membership, and you got access to over £3,000 worth of content. Anyone who has worked with me for a long time knows that I have courses coming out my ears. I've got some courses that are maybe even 8 years old, like empaths, inner child one is sensitive. Lots of stuff has been loaded onto the membership. And the reason why I did that was because I know that everybody's at different levels, but we all have, I know I've went to lots of different teachers for lots of different things to learn lots of different things, and to, with certain areas that maybe I have challenges with. And sometimes there's some areas that we just have a wee challenge in that area, so we might want more help with that, or we might not be drawn. Some of us are drawn to certain things and not others. So what I've done is just loaded the platform with a whole load of content, and for £44 a month, you get access to all the self-study content that's in the vault, right? Now, most of it is in the vault. I'll be honest, a lot of it's not for download because it's such a low-cost monthly membership, but you get access to all that, plus in the Light Workers Toolkit, which I'll also, I think, going to just add, because it is a membership to it, is the name, it might be slightly changed. Basically, what that is you also get access to the monthly archetypal coaching and healing sessions. And if you're able to attend live, or you're able to, if you're paying for the monthly session, you can send me a message and say, this is a particular issue I'm having, and there's things that I can do to support you and try and help you clear those things, right? So that means you can keep listening to that content over and over again. I will put details below, but there is also a free Light Workers library, and that is a sample of some of the content and the type of things I do to help you explore lots of things. I'm very generous in that. There's lots of things you get for free from me. I don't believe in, when I study things, I don't, I don't just dip my toe into things. I tend to go deep, and I'm a great believer in doing that. So I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I know I've not been doing much to do with the market recently. There's just a lot of things that I'm going to be changing. So just bear with me at the moment. Have a beautiful weekend, everyone. Take care. Okay, bye-bye for now.